Luke Schenn still not going into the lineup. As far as we know, still just kind of sitting around with the Canucks, waiting for the trade deadline on Friday. We don't know what's going to happen here with Luke Schenn.
Here's the thing. Friedman was on Donnie and Dolly today. I think he also mentioned this on the Merrick show. Talked about how the Canucks thought they were really close, and he thinks that they might be a little frustrated with how things have gone. And we saw this with Boston, right? Boston was apparently in on Vladislav Gavrikov, and I think there was a report out there that Columbus actually thought that the deal was basically done. Columbus thought it was a done deal, and Boston pivots at the last minute, goes toward Dmitry Orlov and Garnett Hathaway, who they acquired from the Washington Capitals.
Correct.
I wonder if something similar happened or is happening with Luke Schenn, where Boston may have been a contributor there in the Schenn talks, and then Boston all of a sudden backed out. Again, that can affect prices in a lot of different ways. So I don't know.
Here's the question then. Off the top of the episode here, we're talking patience is great. Patience is good. Sounds like I'm reading a Bible verse here. But what I'm saying is, I mean, the patience has worked out well for the Canucks with the Ethan Bear trade, with the Kraftsoff trade. Could patience end up biting them in the butt here with Luke Schenn?
Biting them in the buck. You heard it here first.
Clip it.
It might. Let's get the thoughts of Sportsnet 650's very own Satiar Shah.
First time on the YouTube channel, I think, here.
Nope, Sat's been with us before.
Just kidding.
I've always fun being on with you boys. Yeah, making me laugh before coming on. Buck, hey? Bite you in the buck. I like that.
Hey, I used to produce your show. You've done worse, Sat.
I've done far worse.
Sat, what I want to ask you about is just what we were talking about when Faber dropped the bite the buck. With Luke Schenn, we've seen the Canucks be patient, right? Like, we've seen them be patient with Hugler, and I don't know how much of our conversation you already heard, but we were talking about how they were patient with the Ethan Bear trade. They were patient with Kraftsoff. Are they a little too patient, perhaps, with Luke Schenn?
I mean, it's hard to know, right? Because it's easy to say in terms of if they had an offer on the table for a third-round pick and said no to it, potentially, is that what you're hoping for at best now? And do you wish you had taken it? But judging by what Friedman said, the sense was they were fairly close on something and they thought that they were going to get something done. And it didn't happen, right? And what do you do at that situation, right? Like, you take the guy out of the lineup, you think you're pretty close on something, for whatever reason it falls through. And those things happen quite often. We've seen now with Gavrikov and Boston and Columbus is actually pretty chafed at Boston because they thought they did have an agreement, and clearly that's not what happened. So sometimes that's how these things go. I will say, if you've ever come across hearing NHL trade conversations, they're very awkward. I've heard a couple, not with Vancouver, but they're very awkward. You think it's just like a normal conversation where you're just like, hey, I got this guy, you got this guy, who do you want to move? They play so coy. They're like, I might be willing to do something along these lines. I'm not saying I do this, but maybe this. Like, they're so wishy-washy in trade conversations. So I could see maybe how some people feel like they're close on something, but they end up not being close on it. But that's going to be the big question. If they end up, say, settling for something below a third-round pick for Luke Schenn, I do think that'll be a situation where we can look back and say they certainly missed the window. But I'd still say with a week to go, Vancouver may still get their valuation.